Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through 34 and 53 through 56. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all they had done and taught. Jesus said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and as they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As he went ashore, he saw a great crowd. And he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret and moored the boat. When they got out of the boat, people at once recognized him and rushed about that whole region and began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak. And all who touched it were healed. Living God still speaks today. Thanks be to God. The circus coming to town used to be a major entertainment event. I can recall flyers being distributed in advance of the coming circus when we lived in Campinas, São Paulo. It was often customary to have parades through town, enticing people to pay their entrance fees to come and see the marvels on display under the big tent. If we go back a couple of millennia, the circus was perhaps the only entertainment option to speak of, coming around only very seldomly. There was a theater in Athens. There was the Colosseum in Rome. But there were very few entertainment venues, other competing options. When Jesus came traipsing through the Judean countryside, it was a major event for many people, if not for most. They turned out for the circus. They came for the spectacle. They came for the entertainment value provided by this wandering preacher, this miracle worker. They came with that same kind of excitement of revivals in days past, when entertainment for crowds were limited options. Many were not really there to hear Jesus. They were just there for the show. They were there for the unexpected. Are we seeking for more than just a good show? Jesus was not attempting to be a performer. He was not focused on theatrics. He was not trying to capture the attention of crowds by his prowess at telling stories or performing miraculous wonders before them. In today's passage of Mark, we find that he was specifically trying to get away from the crowds. He was trying to spend time with his disciples to debrief their ministry experience and allow them some rest, time to recover. He sent no one ahead of him with flyers, with a herald trumpet, proclamations of his coming, or even letting anyone know the next stop on his journey. His world tour didn't have much of a PR staff. Rather than make a big deal of where he was going, he took them to unexpected and remote places that would be out of the way, that would be difficult to find. Remember, a couple of times the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association held events near where we were living in Brazil. Billy Graham didn't just show up to the stadium. He did not simply come and preach to large crowds. Months before his arrival, there were already teams on the ground. They were preparing for the event. They were contacting local churches. They were equipping local leaders for follow-up. They were encouraging congregations to get involved in inviting people to attend the meetings. They were preparing materials to have them already on hand for engaging people who responded to Billy's presence and preaching. They made a host of arrangements. They carried out lots of publicity. They laid enormous preparation efforts to ensure that these evangelistic services would be memorable, impactful, well attended, and direct people responding into the care of local congregations. Jesus didn't do any of that. None of it. By every measure of successful church growth and outreach, he did not employ any effective strategy for engaging the people who came out to see and hear him. He did not plan any system of follow-up on his presence other than investing in 12 disciples. He built no structure for keeping people engaged, focused, and building a lasting organizational platform. From all we know of effective church growth and planting, he did everything wrong. He did not take advantage of the fact that people were coming out to find him, to witness his miraculous doings, to hear him preach, to see him work miracles. He didn't even announce where he was going to hold a healing service. He walked away from where people were gathered and went into the wilds to spend time with his disciples. I remember hearing about Elevation Church holding a great Easter egg hunt for which they contracted a helicopter to fly in and drop thousands of Easter eggs from over the crowd. There was lots of publicity leading up to that. I know I saw at least one article in the paper beforehand. The spectacle was designed for a large turnout from which they would engage the curious and bring them into their circle. Spectacles draw crowds. I had a parishioner speak up at a church meeting to say, well, if what we want is a lot of people to show up, we just need to put dancing girls on the stage. There are lots of ways to draw crowds, aren't there? There are lots of ways to engage and manipulate people. There are plenty of options for bait and switch tactics, or to simply trade Jesus' teaching for entertainment, spectacle, getting butts in seats. Too often they're limited to attracting people rather than transforming us. Jesus was not seeking to draw crowds. They simply came. They dogged his steps. They went out of their way either for the show, for healing, to satisfy their curiosity, or in hopes of having Jesus feed them. They were not necessarily there for Jesus' teaching. They were not gathered to take in what Jesus had to say and allow it to radically transform their lives. Jesus had a different purpose than they did. They came for a show. He gave them lessons about God and how to live according to God's will. He taught them how to love one another, how to embody God's reign right here and now, how to allow the good news to transform their living and their communities. Some of them gave heed to what he said. Some of them simply scoffed at his teaching. Some were not paying any mind to what he said. They were just waiting for something supernatural to happen, that they might witness a miracle, have something to talk about. When Jesus left that side of the lake, Jesus took the disciples to another shoreline, opposite where they had been on the lake. People gathered there ahead of him. They brought their sick to be healed. They wanted this nomadic prophet to heal their loved ones. They weren't really there to listen to what he said. That was secondary. They were there to have their needs met. Once Jesus had healed them, they would rejoice, but they would also allow Jesus to just continue down the road. Their lives only really changed by his gift of health, their reincorporation into society. Why did Jesus heal them? Why did Jesus teach them? Why did Jesus feed them? It wasn't to build a great audience. It was not to grow his following. It was not to become better known as a miracle worker, an entertainer, a one-man circus. Mark tells us rather clearly that Jesus responded to them due to his compassion for them. He saw them as needing direction in their lives. He responded to move them beyond their desires for entertainment, food, or healing. He responded to their need for a completely new direction in life, a new purpose to take them forward. Yes, he recognized their hunger. Yes, he recognized their infirmities. Yes, he understood the emptiness in their lives. Yes, he was concerned to meet those needs. Yes, he responded to fulfill them. He also went further than only meeting their physical and mental, social, psychological needs. He offered them teaching on many things to fill the void in their lives and place them on a path of transformation. Transformation that begins with trusting God to meet our needs and trusting God's call upon our lives to lead us forward. Like sheep without a shepherd, They were wandering without knowing how to feed themselves, or how to protect themselves, or even how to locate water they could drink. The circus was a distraction. It distracted the crowd from their needs. It distracted them from Jesus' purposes. It was a distraction to the disciples Jesus was seeking to teach and guide. Jesus met their needs, but he did not validate the circus. He saw through it to the needs of the people, met those needs, and continued on with his mission. There's a reason the gospel tells us that Jesus did not put much faith in the crowds. They were similar to the crowds who also later called for his crucifixion. They might acclaim him on his entry into Jerusalem, but too much depended on what they were seeking. Who was riling them up? Entertainment, food, healing, or looking for God's transformation can be very different things. Are we looking to Jesus for entertainment? Or are we focused on learning from him, allowing for our lives to be transformed? If we are seeking a circus, perhaps we also are in need of Jesus' healing touch.